This has been a year full of hardship and heartache for the AFSCME family and for the nation. Everything about the way we live and work, how we take care of our families, how we educate our children, how we engage with our communities, and how we band together in a union has been disrupted. No one has been unaffected. It took only a few weeks for the number of fatalities nationwide to exceed that of 9/11. For the last 5 months, standing 5 feet away from each other without a mask could have fatal consequences. We haven't experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. So much has changed, but one thing hasn't. AFSCME members' commitment to the job. If anything, it has gotten stronger, bolder, braver. We're at our best when things are at their worst. Even when it was hard, you didn't quit. Even in the most challenging moments, you provided hope. And even when many politicians failed, you delivered. We have said many times that public service isn't just a job, it's a calling. And AFSCME, during 2020, when your communities needed you most, you answered the call. Ebony Wallace answered the call. She's a UHCP nurse specializing in psychiatric care who works at a Kaiser mental health facility in Los Angeles.
When the pandemic hit, we were told that we cannot wear masks to work. The reason we could not wear masks to work was it would bring on fear for patients. But my union, we fought daily. We communicated and we really fought and we won. And we were able to wear masks at that point every single day.
Our OCSEA brother, Brian Miller, answered the call. He's a corrections officer at Marion Correctional Institution in Marion, Ohio, which was one of the nation's most dangerous hotspots.
I did contract the virus. I was bedridden for 10 days. As soon as I was better and I was cleared to go back to work, I was back to work because we were still in the middle of the virus. It was still devastating the institution, and I understood that if I didn't get back to work, that would be one more person, one more of my brothers and sisters that would have to stay over for 16 hours to take my place.
Kenji Warren of AFSCME Council 63 answered the call. He works on the back of a collection truck for the Department of Public Works in the township of Montclair, New Jersey.
During this pandemic, we've seen a lot more garbage, a lot more heavier. It's put a lot of wear and tear on our bodies, me and my coworkers. But even through all this heaviness and the pandemic, we pushed ourselves through it, and we just like to keep our community clean and keep on going.
In the middle of the worst public health crisis in a century, these AFSCME members and all of you have done your work with poise and professionalism, with courage and compassion. Make no mistake about it, you are frontline heroes, and AFSCME is never stronger. Hello, AFSCME family, and welcome. This is my 21st AFSCME convention, but it's the first one where I haven't been able to see you, to embrace you, to celebrate with you, and to recommit to the fight with you in person. But we're not going to let a global pandemic keep us from conducting our union's business or setting an agenda for the next few years. We don't need to be in the same room to do that. Social distancing does not preclude solidarity. The solidarity that powers our union isn't found in a convention hall in Los Angeles or anywhere else. It's embedded in our values. It runs through our veins. It lives in our hearts. A virtual convention will require us to adapt and adjust, just like we always do. We roll with the punches. We're all in this together, and we will do the important work required of us over the next 2 days. But before we go any further, let's honor the courageous members of our AFSCME family we've lost to COVID-19. Please join me in a moment of silence and extreme gratitude. When we last met in Boston 2 years ago, the Supreme Court had just dealt us what many thought would be a knockout blow in the Janus case. But the mean green machine doesn't hand over our rights and freedoms without a fight. In the face of an existential threat, we squared our shoulders and we stood our ground. We refused to let the wealthy special interests break our will. In overwhelming numbers, AFSCME members stood up and said, "Hell no, I'm sticking with my union." Because we were AFSCME strong, because we had spent the previous years changing the culture of our union, we didn't just survive, we thrived. Let's take a look at the challenges we've met and the victories we've earned since 2018.
The race at the top of your ballot has been called. Gretchen Whitmer will be our state's next governor.
Like the social service workers across the state who help their fellow humans walk through their darkest hours.
What we did tonight is send a very clear message that this is a state that's ready to lead in so many ways.
Tonight, I want to say thank you to our union families that helped make this election happen.
For everything they do, they deserve a voice on the job. They deserve the freedom to negotiate for a fair return on their work, for decent wages, for working conditions that will keep them safe. It's been a long time coming. Today's signing of SB 135 is a bold and historic step. The largest expansion of state employee collective bargaining rights in any state since 2003. For too long, you have been overlooked. For too long, you've been undervalued. For too long, you have been overworked. Well, that stops today, because you now have a seat at the table. But that's what the trade union movement is all about. Organizing together, having power together. This is the opportunity that we have. AFSCME's story over the last 2 years is one of fearlessness under fire, resilience in the face of adversity. Whether it was politically motivated attacks on our right to exist or a global pandemic threatening the safety and stability of our communities, we have risen to the moment. If only the same could be said for the Trump White House, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and his caucus. In a moment of distress and despair for the nation, these politicians have demonstrated only cowardice and incompetence. There's an election 82 days from now, and we'll make sure voters know exactly which politicians failed to lead at this do-or-die moment in the nation's history. Which ones were indifferent to public health, which ones ignored economic devastation and allowed working families to suffer. And because of the work we will do over the next 82 days, I believe we will expand the pro-worker majority in the House of Representatives, win control of the U.S. Senate, and also flip key governorships in state legislative chambers nationwide. And then there's the race for the most powerful office in the country. I could cite chapter and verse about the corruption, cruelty, and chaos of Donald Trump's presidency. I could go on and on about his record in kicking working people to the curb, about his appalling mismanagement of this crisis. But I think you know all that, and besides, it would just take too long. I'd rather tell you a little bit about the man who's going to take his job. Joe Biden is someone with the experience and steady hand we need at this moment. Joe Biden is a proven fighter for working people who understands that the union difference means better jobs and stronger communities. Joe Biden cares more about progress than partisanship. He will extend a hand across the aisle, bringing people together to get things done for working families and move this nation forward. And tomorrow, you will hear from him in his own words as Vice President Biden joins us to talk more about his agenda for change. For us, the stakes in this election go beyond policy differences. It cuts deeper than that. Every time Donald Trump tries to stoke racial resentment and turn Americans against one another, every time he degrades women, the LGBTQ community, people with disabilities, immigrants, African Americans, and all people of color, he's attacking the unshakable core principles that define our union. We stand for everything Donald Trump denigrates and despises. It's in our nature to bring people together, to lift up the vulnerable, to heal and protect in times of distress, to rally everyone around our common humanity. We stand for the idea that an injury to one is an injury to all. We believe in equality and opportunity, in tolerance and inclusion, in dignity and justice for every individual. And we believe that Black lives matter. AFSCME family, we practice what we preach. We walk the walk. We will lead in this space. We are committed to expanding our own policies and procedures so we can identify, address, and root out any bias that might exist, allowing us to become a better, stronger union. And we will engage with all of our affiliates to ensure they are doing the same. It isn't enough to pay lip service to these principles. We must live them every single day, because that's who we are, AFSCME family. The murder of George Floyd and others has once again exposed the systemic racial injustices that have plagued our country for hundreds of years. But the rising wave of activism in recent months is more than a reaction to incidents of police violence. It's also anguish over generations of institutional racism, of underinvestment in Black and brown communities. It's anger about a rigged system that privileges people already standing on third base, while millions of people of color can't even buy a ticket to the game. You know, I have 3 young grandsons, one of whom was born just a few months ago. It is my hope that they will become men in a country that doesn't just recognize that their lives matter, but that their lives matter just the same as anyone else's. And someday, I'll tell my grandsons about an American giant whom we lost last month, civil rights pioneer and Georgia Congressman John Lewis. John was a man of unsurpassed courage who did not flinch in staring down bigotry and brutality, who took nightsticks to the skull, who was burned with cigarettes, who was arrested more than 40 times, all to move us toward greater freedom, justice, and equality. And now he's passing the mantle on to us. John Lewis wrote in his memoir, "Every generation leaves behind a legacy. What that legacy will be is determined by the people of that generation." What legacy do you want to leave behind. Let our legacy be that we were agitators and disruptors, that we caused good trouble, as John Lewis called it, that we picked up where he left off, that we, with our own rich civil rights history, helped repair America's racial breach. Let our legacy be that we help the nation rise from the ashes of this current crisis, that we help turn this moment of anxiety and turbulence into a catalyst for profound structural change. It's up to us, AFSCME. The last 4 years have frayed our social fabric and rattled the nation's psyche. Because of who we are, we must show the way. At this moment of fracture, tension, and unrest, the values that have always defined our union have never been needed more. Our moral leadership has never been needed more. We are on the front lines, AFSCME family, leading not just the nation's struggle against COVID-19, but the struggle to restore the American promise. It's a tall order, but I know we're up to the task. And so I'm asking you today to stand up and join me in continuing John Lewis's work. Stand up and defend AFSCME's values against those who benefit from rancor and division. Stand up for your coworkers and your union, and also for your neighbors and your community. Stand up with courage and conviction, with pride and with passion. Stand up for dignity and respect. Stand up for fairness and freedom. Stand up for social, economic, and racial justice. Stand up and cause good trouble. Thank you very much.